Tonight is game night once again, and again, I don't have a big group, but I'm also pretty underprepared compared to the past. Let's talk about why. Hey fellow Game Masters, welcome back to this week's campaign log setup portion. Today, I really am just going to talk about why I haven't done a whole lot to prepare for what's coming up. And basically that's because I already did. I had stuff prepared before with the previous sessions that we didn't touch. And that's something I wanted to touch on a little bit is, reusing old material. So I had some stuff. I did 3 videos where I talked about my preparations and what I was going to do for each, for the players in those sessions. But then at each time, things changed just a little bit. And, the players got to watch some of that, I think. But still today, the plan is to maybe reuse some of that material or give them new stuff on the fly. Now, on the fly is kind of difficult for some people. I find it pretty easy to do things, improvise situations and change the stories. As last week, we ended up doing this whole story arc with a hand that had nothing to do with what was previously done, but now that hand is an integral part of the story as far as the players are concerned. So I have to make that part of my, story as well, because I want them to not feel like that was a wasted session. So now they're in this position. My players are there, and they've found this hand that one of them is very tempted to go back and get and take out of this vault. They had kind of made the decision to leave it in the vault while they look into it and find out more about it, but one player has kind of hinted that he might want to go back and get it. That player isn't going to make it tonight, unfortunately, so we won't really see that drama unfold, but we will have a new player who missed a week, and he's going to come into the mix, and so there is still the chance, and the other 2 players who were already here before, there's still a chance that they will, just go take the hand back and run with it from there. If they do take the hand, there's a couple options I have where they're probably going to go try to get it looked at in the vault by the magic users there. They'll maybe take it to the temple and try to do something with it there. Or they may just take it out of the city completely. They take it back to Silvermoon, take it to Waterdeep, take it to whichever city they choose, or whatever they choose will then determine what my next the next actions are. There's also the chance that the bard of the party shows up tonight. And if that's the case, then he will likely want to try and play at the king's birthday, which is in a couple hours, and the players have not gotten the 200 gnomes that was mentioned before. They haven't succeeded. The player who had made the arrangement, Raziel we'll call him, I'm going to start giving the players names here so you can hear, the differences a little bit. Raziel had made the agreement to bring 200 gnomes, but he wasn't here last week, so this week, I was thinking, maybe he'll come and try it again this week, but again, he's not going to make it. So this week will pretty much, or this session will pretty much end out the day and determine whether or not they can actually get those gnomes back to get that 1,000 gold. But it's looking like it's not gonna be a lot. It's looking like it's just not gonna happen, which is cool. But there's still a chance that the bard will want to play, which one then I can use the information that I had last time of my plans for the bard, who's supposed to play the show already. So you can see I'm just kind of I get to pick pieces apart and move them how I want. That was my plan for this week, is see what the players decide to do and go with that and kind of use things that I already had planned. And that's mainly just because this last week was crazy. I had barely any time to do anything. And, I didn't want to have to sit down and take an hour to plan. So I decided, okay, I have my notes before, I'm going to use them this time. It's a viable option when you've been running a game as long as I have, and we've just reached 1 year playing this campaign. So I still have stuff that I prepared last year that could still come into play. There's a lot of different options going on here. And the players, they could end up deciding to go to the Underdark, they could go to a whole other city back to Tribor, they could go to Neverwinter. There's a lot of different things the players could do, and I have no idea what they're going to do. So for this session, this week, I chose to not go overboard with preparation. That was my conscious choice to not over-prepare. So, later, it's like 6:30. The players are supposed to start showing up around 7. We start the game at 8. That's how close to the game that I'm recording this, because they could come knocking on the door any minute now. After the session, I will record, of course, the recap, so be sure to check that out. If you're on YouTube, just stick around after the little title. It'll show up. If you're on Facebook, it'll show up. If you're on IGTV, click the next video, which is the recap video. Welcome back once again, fellow Game Masters, to now the recap. Last night we had a game. I wouldn't say it was a good game session. And this is the lesson that I want you to take away. I'm going to tell you at the top of this bit, so then you can forget about it later, and then I'll remind you at the end. But the lesson is, it doesn't matter if you have a good session or a bad session, just keep going. Because you will have great sessions. You'll have awesome sessions that you love and the players love, and then you'll have bad sessions where you may not feel like as creatively fulfilled. The players might not feel as they've made enough progress in the story. These kind of things happen. But it doesn't mean you're a bad game master or a good game master, it just means this is how the game played out for that session. That being said, I was a little disappointed in myself as the game master in the session last night. Not because of my lack of preparation. As I explained, I didn't do a whole lot of preparation because I had stuff already set up, but because I wasn't able to give the players exactly what they were looking for. They had something in mind that they wanted. They basically, what happened was, at the top of the session, instead of just leaving the hand underground, like I thought they would do, I mentioned that I thought maybe some players would go back. But the twist was, the guy who played the druid, Dalin, is the character's name. Dalin actually showed up for the session, and he decided to go back and get the hand. He had thought it through, I guess, over the week. He went back to get the hand and tried to make a deal with it that it would give him information about Cyric. He ended up working with Pip, the fairy rogue, in order to get this hand, and everyone else. By the end of this scenario, so to speak, they had come to an agreement that this is the best thing to do. They had the hand. It couldn't talk to them unless it was outside of this bag of holding, so they have this hand kind of stashed away in a bag of holding. So they took it back to the surface, so to speak, back to Baramoons, the dwarven city, where they went to the temple and decided to have this conversation with the hand in a holy place, hoping that that would help them, kind of keep control over it. The hand did not seem to be aggressive, angry against anybody. It gave them the information they wanted. It worked. When someone else cast Zone of Truth on the area and the hand, it did affect the hand. I allowed that to happen. And they were able to get a lot of information out of it. Was it the information they were exactly looking for? No. Do I know what information they were exactly looking for? Not quite. They were asking about weaknesses and stuff, like the weaknesses of Cyric, the strengths. They may have wanted me to say, oh, his weaknesses are lightning, radiant damage, and poison. They may have wanted that specific things, but they were also dealing with a hand who was a big fan of Cyric and wasn't going to tell those kind of things. And in his perception, Cyric doesn't have any weaknesses. That's just how it is. So I feel a little like I failed them a little bit. I wasn't able to give them as much as they may have wanted in that moment. So for me, the session, it wasn't a waste, but it was one of those sessions where you're like, I guess we gotta have a session like this where you don't feel like you're making any progress. Where me as the game master, I didn't feel like we were making any progress as the story. But when I really look at the big picture, it's important to know the information. Like the G.I. Joe say, knowledge is power. And, knowing is half the battle, and some other things about, knowing something is important. So it was good for that reason, but I still feel like I kind of let the guys down a little bit in that session. But the point is, that's okay. In the next coming up sessions, things might get a little more interesting, as I know the conversation came up about the 200 gnomes that they need to get, and I know that they are planning to possibly try and get some gnomes. They were able to leave Baramoons and go to Silvery Moon in this last night's session, where they did actually summon Lathander. I think I made it a little too easy to talk to a god at this point, because I had them roll, but I think I didn't set my difficulty high enough, so when they rolled all together, it was a pretty easy thing to achieve. So I think I kind of shot myself in the foot a little bit with that, but I think I can resolve that later and help it out and kind of work out the situation as well. The players, I think, have a good plan moving forward. I think they have a set goal in mind. They don't have a time frame. Like the idea that Cyric is going to attack gods, they don't know when that's going to happen. So I think that kind of works to mine and their advantage, that they can set the time frame as they want. Moving forward, they can take time if they want to go catch these gnomes and do this. That's the only thing that has a time frame. Everything else doesn't have a time frame. And I've explained to them in the past, I try not to have the story move too fast without their involvement. So, if they decide to go get the gnomes, I won't really have anything happen outside, probably, or like very minor things happening in the outside world, just so they can be involved in the big things that happen. Unless it's something that I specifically think, oh, this would be cool if they, since they're wasting their time, maybe this would be neat if they miss this moment. That might come up later in other things, but for now, I'm trying to keep them involved and engaged in the story as much as possible. The thing with the hand, here's the thing with the hand, is the hand belongs with Cyric, or, it belongs to Odin. Odin is the demon. The demon works for Cyric. Cyric is the god of lies and deceit and treachery and this kind of evilness that comes from that. So I have to figure out a way or some manner to get that back around so the hand can actually have something negative that it does. My players watching this will now be more wary of that, but as it stands, player knowledge versus character knowledge, guys, the hand is pretty docile. It's out of its containment underground. It's in the bag of holding. That's where it's at. So next week, we'll see what happens. I have high hopes for next week. I think we're going to have a lot more, maybe some fun action going on. I'm definitely going to try to get in some combat or some sort of scenario, dice rolling initiative scenario. We didn't have one last night. And it's okay, you don't need to have one every night. But, so keep that in mind as you're doing your adventures. You don't need to be perfect every time. It's almost impossible to run a great session every time. And if there's a game master out there who says, oh, I run the best game sessions every time, they're lying. They're lying. I'm gonna say it. Because it just doesn't happen. Like even some of the best game masters in the public eye will admit that they're not perfect and they have their bad sessions. And it's okay to have that. So keep that in mind, and as you're preparing and running your own game sessions. Thank you for watching this campaign session recap, and we'll see you next time.